I discovered my daughter had removed my last name from her birth certificate and replaced it with her stepfather's. I said nothing. I just stopped paying for everything. 1 month later, she texted, "Dad, the college tuition is due." I only replied, "Ask your stepfather, I'm not your father." Welcome to today's story. Before we dive deeper, go ahead and hit like if you're already hooked and subscribe to stay updated on future episodes. Let me know in the comments which country or city you're joining from. I love hearing from you. Just a heads up, this narrative contains fictionalized elements designed for entertainment and reflection. Any similarities to actual people or places are unintentional, but the lessons and themes explored here are meaningful and relatable. I discovered my daughter had taken my last name off her birth certificate and replaced it with her stepfather's. I didn't say a word. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just stopped paying for everything. No more tuition, no more rent, no more anything. 2 weeks later, her mother sued me. 3 weeks after that, I won in court. And now, at 53 years old, I'm finally free. My name is Scott Lawson. I'm a vice president of commercial banking at Truist, where I've worked for 26 years. I live in a quiet townhouse in Lake Oswego, Oregon, a place I bought after my divorce, a place that's finally mine. I've got a good job, a steady income, and a life that for the first time in decades doesn't revolve around someone else's needs. But it wasn't always this way. For 19 years, I gave everything I had to my daughter Ashley. I paid for her private high school. I paid for her Sweet 16 party at a vineyard outside Portland, a party that cost me more than most people spend on a wedding. I paid for her dream college in New York City, a place where tuition alone could buy you a new car every year. I did all of this because I loved her, because she was my daughter, because I thought that's what fathers do. And then in February 2023, I found out she'd erased my name from her official records and replaced it with her stepfather's. Not because I was a bad father, not because I was absent, but because her mother told her to, because it was convenient. Because Andrew Thompson, the man who'd been in her life since she was 9, had money status and a last name that sounded better than mine. When I discovered what she'd done, I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't try to explain how much it hurt. I just stopped. I stopped paying her rent in Manhattan. I stopped covering her school expenses. I stopped answering her texts asking for money. Her mother called me selfish. She called me vindictive. She said I was abandoning my daughter when she needed me most. But here's the thing, Ashley wasn't my daughter anymore. Not legally, not on paper. She'd made that choice herself. So I let her live with it. Within 2 weeks, Karen, my ex-wife, filed a lawsuit demanding I continue financial support. She claimed I was obligated to pay for Ashley's education, her living expenses, everything. She argued that I was emotionally abusive for cutting her off. I hired a lawyer. We went to court. And in March 2023, a judge ruled in my favor. The judge said it plainly. Ashley Thompson is a legal adult. She made a choice to change her name. Mr. Lawson is not obligated to fund that choice. Karen's lawyer tried to argue that I was being spiteful, that I was punishing Ashley for something her mother pressured her into. But the evidence was clear. Ashley knew what she was doing. She signed the paperwork. She didn't tell me. And when I found out through a county clerk, of all things, she didn't apologize. She just asked me to keep paying. That's when I realized I wasn't her father. I was her ATM. The case made local news. People had opinions. Some said I was a hero for standing up for myself. Others said I was heartless for abandoning my daughter over just a name. But it wasn't just a name. It was 19 years of showing up, paying up, and being pushed aside. It was 19 years of being replaced one decision at a time by a man who had everything I didn't, money status, and my ex-wife's loyalty. I spent over $800,000 on Ashley. I gave her everything I could. and she gave me nothing in return, not even the courtesy of keeping my name. So I stopped. And you know what? I don't regret it. Today, I'm 53. I live in a home I own outright. I have a girlfriend, Diane, who loves me for who I am, not for what I can provide. I travel. I save. I sleep well at night. Ashley. She's 22 now. She works at Nordstrom in downtown Portland. She dropped out of her fancy New York school after I stopped paying. She moved back to Oregon and rents a small apartment in Beaverton with her mother. She's learning what it means to support herself. We see each other maybe twice a year, coffee, lunch, nothing deep. She doesn't call me dad anymore. I don't ask her to. It's civil, it's distant, and it's exactly what she chose. I'm not telling you this story to get sympathy. I'm not looking for validation. I'm telling you this because I learned something these past 3 years, something I wish I'd known 19 years ago. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. It's self-destruction. It's handing someone the keys to your dignity and hoping they'll treat it with care. They won't. If you're reading this and you're a parent who's been funding a child's life, while they disrespect you, ignore you, or treat you like a checkbook, listen to me. You're not helping them. You're hurting both of you. I spent 19 years thinking that if I just gave enough, loved enough, sacrificed enough, my daughter would see me, would value me, would choose me. She didn't, and that's okay. Because I finally chose myself. This story didn't happen overnight. It didn't start in February 2023 when I found that name change document. It started decades earlier in a series of decisions I didn't even realize I was making. Decisions to say yes when I should have said no. Decisions to provide when I should have set boundaries. Decisions to love without limits and pay the price. But to understand how I got here, you need to know where it all began. Let me take you back to where it all started, 1999. I met her at a Portland State University alumni event on a rainy October evening in 1999. The kind of night where the Oregon drizzle soaks through your jacket before you even realize it's raining. I'd almost skipped it. Alumni mixers weren't really my thing, but a college buddy convinced me to show up. Free wine and networking, he said. What's the worst that could happen? Karen was standing near the appetizer table laughing with a group of women I didn't recognize. She had this energy about her, warm, easy, the kind of person who made everyone around her feel comfortable. She was wearing a green sweater that matched her eyes, and when she caught me staring, she didn't look away. She smiled. That's how it started. We talked for 2 hours that night. She told me she was an elementary school teacher at a Title I school in North Portland, working with kids who needed extra support. She loved it. You could hear it in her voice, the way she lit up when she talked about her students, about lesson plans, about parent-teacher conferences. I told her I worked at Truist, that I'd been there since graduating with my finance degree, VP of Commercial Banking. It sounded impressive, but honestly, most days it was just spreadsheets and client meetings. She didn't seem to care about the title. She asked me what I liked about it. I'd never thought about that before. We went on our first date a week later, dinner at a little Italian place in downtown Portland. Then another, and another. By spring, we were inseparable. She moved into my apartment in Hillsborough that June. It was a 2-bedroom place near the Intel campus, nothing fancy, but it was ours. We'd spend weekends hiking Forest Park or driving out to the coast. She'd grade papers at the kitchen table while I worked on client reports. It was simple. It was good. 8 months after that alumni event, I proposed. We got married in a small ceremony at her parents' church in Beaverton, just family and close friends. I remember standing at the altar watching her walk down the aisle thinking, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. I was 26. She was 24. We had our whole lives ahead of us. The first few years were everything I thought marriage should be. We worked, we saved, we planned. We talked about buying a house, about starting a family. We agreed we wanted kids, 2, maybe 3. We'd name them something classic. We'd be the kind of parents who showed up for every recital, every game. But trying for a baby turned out to be harder than we expected. Nothing. Karen took it hard. Every negative test felt like a failure. She'd sit on the bathroom floor staring at the plastic stick, and I'd hold her while she cried. I told her it would happen when it was supposed to. I didn't know what else to say. We saw doctors. They ran tests. Everything came back normal. Just keep trying, they said. Sometimes it takes time. By 2003, we'd stopped talking about it as much. It became this unspoken weight between us, this thing we both wanted, but couldn't control. And then, in early 2004, it happened. Karen woke me up on a Saturday morning in February, holding a pregnancy test. Her hands were shaking. The little window showed 2 pink lines. "We're having a baby," she whispered. I don't think I've ever felt joy like that in my life. Ashley Marie Lawson was born on March 14, 2004 at 6:47 a.m. at Providence Portland Medical Center. 6 pounds, 9 ounces, 10 fingers, 10 toes. A full head of dark hair, just like Karen's. When the nurse placed her in my arms, I felt something shift inside me. I'd spent years building a career, buying things, climbing ladders. But holding my daughter for the first time, that was the first moment in my life that felt like it actually meant something. I promised her right there in that hospital room that I'd always be there for her, that I'd give her everything I didn't have growing up, that she'd never doubt how much she was loved. I meant it. The next few years were chaos in the best way. Diapers, sleepless nights, first words, first steps. Karen stayed home for the first year, then went back to work part-time as an education consultant. I got promoted to senior VP. We were making good money. I was pulling in around $190,000 a year. She was making $68,000. Combined, we were comfortable. In 2008, we bought our first house, a 3-bedroom in Hillsborough, near good schools. It cost $310,000, which felt like a fortune at the time, but we could swing it. The market was solid. We had equity. We had a plan. Ashley was 4 when we moved in. She picked out the paint color for her bedroom lavender. Karen and I spent a weekend assembling her new furniture, arguing over IKEA instructions, laughing when we put the dresser together backward. It felt like everything was falling into place. But somewhere around 2008, things started to shift. It was subtle at first. Karen started working longer hours. She'd stay late at the district office for meetings or trainings. She'd come home tired, distracted. I told myself it was the job. Education consulting was demanding. She was stressed. Then came the late-night phone calls. She'd step outside to take them, saying it was a parent or a coworker. She'd keep her voice low even when she thought I wasn't listening. I'd ask who it was, and she'd say, "Just work stuff." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. By 2009, she was coming home at 9:10 p.m. some nights. Ashley would already be asleep. I'd be in the living room watching TV waiting. She'd walk in, kiss me on the forehead, and go straight to the shower. "Long day?" I'd ask. "You have no idea," she'd say. I didn't press. I should have. But I didn't. Then came the night in January 2010. I was putting Ashley to bed. She was almost 6, still asking for one more story, one more glass of water, when I heard Karen's phone buzz on the kitchen counter. She was in the shower. The screen lit up. "Andrew, can't wait to see you tomorrow. I've been thinking about you all day." I stood there staring at the message, my brain trying to make sense of it. Andrew. Who the hell was Andrew? I picked up the phone. I shouldn't have. I knew I shouldn't have. But I did. I scrolled through their conversation, weeks of texts, months maybe. Flirty messages, plans to meet up, photos I didn't want to see. She'd been seeing him since at least the summer, maybe longer. When Karen came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair dripping, I was sitting at the kitchen table with her phone in my hand. She saw my face. She knew. Scott. I held up the phone. "Who's Andrew?" She didn't answer. She just stood there frozen. "Who is Andrew?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "He's someone from work." "From work?" She nodded. "How long?" "Scott, please." "How long?" She looked at the floor. 6 months. 6 months. I confronted her that night. She didn't deny it. She told me his name, Andrew Thompson, 40 years old, owner of 5 restaurant franchises across the Portland metro area, Panera Bread locations, all of them successful. He'd hired Karen's consulting firm to help train his management staff on conflict resolution. That's how they met. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said, sitting on the edge of our bed, still wrapped in that towel. Her voice was small, apologetic. "It just did." I stood in the doorway, phone still in my hand, staring at her. I wanted to yell, to throw something, to demand answers that would make sense. But all I felt was numb. "How long?" I asked again. 6 months, maybe 7. 7 months. She'd been lying to me for more than half a year. "Do you love him?" She didn't answer right away. That silence told me everything. "I don't know," she finally said. "But I know I'm not happy here anymore." Not happy. That's what it came down to. 11 years of marriage, a daughter we'd fought to have, a house we'd built together, and she wasn't happy. "Then we're done," I said. She looked up at me surprised, like she expected me to fight for her, to beg her to stay. But I couldn't. Because the moment I saw those texts, something inside me broke. It wasn't just my marriage I was losing. It was my daughter. I moved out of the bedroom that night, slept on the couch in the living room, staring at the ceiling until the sun came up. Ashley found me there in the morning, tugging on my sleeve, asking why I wasn't in bed with Mommy. "Daddy's just tired, sweetheart," I said, pulling her into a hug. She wrapped her little arms around my neck. She smelled like strawberry shampoo. I filed for divorce 2 weeks later. Oregon's a no-fault state, which means I didn't have to prove Karen cheated. I didn't have to drag Andrew into court or air our dirty laundry in front of a judge. I just had to say the marriage was irretrievably broken. That was it. My lawyer, a guy named Paul Jackson, same one I'd use years later, told me to brace myself for the custody battle. "Judges in Oregon favor the primary caregiver," he said. "And that's Karen. She's a teacher, stable schedule. You're in banking, you travel for work. That's going to count against you." "I'm her father," I said. "I know. But family court doesn't care about fairness. It cares about what's in the best interest of the child. And Karen's going to argue that stability means staying with her." He was right. Karen's lawyer filed for sole physical custody. I'd get visitation every other weekend, alternating holidays. That's it. 2 days out of every 14. I fought it. God, I fought it. I showed up to every mediation session. I brought records proving I was financially stable, that I could provide for Ashley, that I'd been an involved father since the day she was born. I offered to cut back on travel, to take a lesser role at work, if it meant more time with my daughter. But Karen's lawyer painted me as the workaholic dad, the guy who was never home for dinner, who missed recitals because of client meetings, who put his career above his family. It wasn't true, but it was close enough. In February 2011, the judge made her ruling. Karen would have primary physical custody. I'd get Ashley every other weekend, Friday evening through Sunday evening, and alternating holidays. I'd pay $3,600 a month in child support based on Oregon's income guidelines. Mr. Lawson, the judge said, looking at me over her reading glasses, you'll still have the opportunity to be an active father in your daughter's life, but given the circumstances, this arrangement serves Ashley's best interest. I nodded. What else could I do? The divorce was finalized on March 18, 2011. 11 years of marriage over in a single signature. I remember the day I told Ashley I was moving out. She was 7 years old, sitting at the kitchen table coloring a picture of a house. I sat down across from her, trying to find the right words. "Hey, kiddo," I said. "I need to talk to you about something." She looked up, crayon still in her hand. "What?" "You know how Mommy and Daddy have been different lately." She nodded slowly. "Kids always know more than you think." "Well, we've decided that Daddy's going to live in a different house for a while. But you'll still see me all the time, okay? Every other weekend, we'll have our own special time together, just you and me." Her face crumpled. "Why?" "Because sometimes grown-ups need space," I said, hating myself for how vague it sounded. "But it doesn't change how much I love you. You know that, right?" She didn't answer. She just crawled into my lap and cried. I held her for a long time. I didn't know what else to do. 2 weeks later, I moved into a 3-bedroom townhouse in Lake Oswego. It was smaller than the Hillsborough house, but it was mine. No shared mortgage. No memories of Karen coming home late, smelling like someone else's cologne. Karen kept the house, the one we'd bought together in 2008, the one with Ashley's lavender bedroom and the backyard swing set I'd assembled myself. She kept most of the furniture, too. I didn't fight her on it. I just wanted out. The child support kicked in immediately. $3,600 a month due on the first of every month. It was calculated based on my income and the state's guidelines, fair according to the court, painful according to my bank account. But I paid it. Every month. On time. Without complaint. Because Ashley was my daughter. And no matter what Karen had done, no matter how much it hurt, I wasn't going to let her suffer for our mistakes. The first weekend Ashley came to stay with me, she cried when Karen dropped her off. She didn't want to leave her mom. Didn't want to sleep in a strange bed. Didn't understand why everything had changed. I set up her room with all her favorite things, her stuffed animals, her nightlight, the blanket she'd had since she was a baby. I made pancakes for breakfast and let her pick the movie. I tried so hard to make it feel normal, but it wasn't normal. It was every other weekend, it was scheduled, it was visitation. I told myself I'd still be her father, that I'd still be there for every milestone, every scraped knee, every bad dream, that nothing would change between us. I had no idea how wrong I was. The first weekend after the divorce, I showed up at the Hillsborough house at 5 p.m., just like the custody agreement said. Karen answered the door. Ashley was standing behind her, clutching her stuffed rabbit, the one she'd had since she was 2. "Hey, kiddo," I said, crouching down to her level. "You ready to come see my new place?" She shook her head. Tears were already streaming down her face. "I don't want to go," she whispered. Karen knelt beside her. "It's just for the weekend, sweetie. Daddy's going to bring you back Sunday night." I held out my hand. Ashley took it, but she didn't let go of Karen. She looked back at her mother as I walked her to the car, like she was being taken away from home. That's when I realized, to her, she was being taken away. After the divorce, I became the weekend dad. 2 Saturdays a month if I was lucky. Every other weekend, I'd pick Ashley up on Friday evening and drop her off Sunday night. 48 hours, once every 2 weeks. That's all I got. I missed her first day of 2nd grade. I missed her school play where she played a tree. I missed the day she lost her first tooth. I missed everything that happened between our scheduled visits. Karen would send me photos sometimes, Ashley in her Halloween costume, Ashley at a birthday party, Ashley holding up a spelling test with a gold star. But I wasn't there. I was just the guy who got updates. I paid my child support on time every month. $3,600 automatically deducted from my paycheck. I never missed a payment. But providing isn't the same as being present. By 2013, Ashley was 9 years old. That's when Karen told me she was getting remarried. "His name's Andrew," she said over the phone. "Andrew Thompson. Ashley really likes him." I met him 3 weeks later when I showed up for my weekend. The Hillsborough house was gone. They'd moved to a gated community in Lake Oswego, a massive 5-bedroom house with a pool, a tennis court, and a 3-car garage. The kind of place that cost $1.4 million. Andrew answered the door, tall, salt and pepper hair, the kind of smile that looked practiced. "You must be Scott," he said, shaking my hand. "I'm Andrew. Good to finally meet you." "Ashley," he called over his shoulder, "your dad's here." She came running down the stairs. She barely looked at me. "Bye, Uncle Andrew," she said, giving him a hug. Uncle Andrew, that's what she called him. Over the next few years, Andrew became a fixture in Ashley's life. He started coaching her youth volleyball team. Suddenly, she was texting me updates about games I wasn't invited to. "Uncle Andrew says I'm getting really good at serving." He drove her to school most mornings. He picked her up most afternoons. When I'd ask about her day, she'd mention things Andrew had said, places they'd gone, jokes they'd shared. "Uncle Andrew took me to get frozen yogurt after practice." "Uncle Andrew helped me with my math homework." I kept showing up for my every other weekend visits. I kept paying my $3,600 a month. But I wasn't part of her daily life anymore. I was the guy who took her to the movies twice a month. In 2014, Ashley started high school at Jesuit High School, one of the top private schools in Portland. Tuition was $19,500 a year. Karen called me 2 weeks before school started. "Ashley got into Jesuit," she said. "We're really excited. But tuition is expensive. I know the divorce agreement doesn't require you to pay for private school, but..." "I'll pay it," I said. So I added another $975 a month to my budget. $3,600 for child support, $975 for tuition. That's $4,575 every single month. But it wasn't about the money. It was about making sure Ashley had every opportunity. Making sure she knew I was still there even if I wasn't there. Except she didn't notice. I showed up for her first volleyball game at Jesuit. I sat in the bleachers, scanning the crowd for her. When I spotted her on the court, she was laughing with her teammates. I waved. She didn't see me. After the game, she walked right past me, climbing into Andrew's car with Karen. They drove off before I could say a word. I texted her later, "Great game today, kiddo. You were amazing." She replied 3 hours later, "Thanks, one word." By 2015, I'd stopped going to her games. She never asked why. I'd see her posts on Instagram, photos of her and Andrew at Trailblazers games at the coast, at fancy restaurants downtown. She tagged him in every photo. She never tagged me. When Jesuit sent home emergency contact forms, I saw that Andrew Thompson was listed as the first contact. Not me. Andrew. "Why is Andrew your emergency contact?" I asked her one weekend. She shrugged. "He's the one who picks me up from school." It just made sense. It made sense. By 2016, she'd started canceling weekends with excuses. "I have a volleyball tournament. I have a project due. I'm going to a friend's house." Karen would apologize on her behalf. "You know how teenagers are." I knew. I just didn't know how to fix it. Every month, I wired $4,575 to Karen's account. Every month, I got less and less time with my daughter. By 2018, when Ashley turned 14, I was paying more than ever, but seeing her less and less. In January 2020, Ashley called me. She didn't call often anymore. Most of our communication happened through Karen logistics about weekend pickups, permission slips, things like that. So when I saw her name on my phone screen, my heart jumped a little. Maybe she wanted to talk. Maybe she missed me. "Hey, Dad," she said. Her voice was bright, excited. "I wanted to ask you about something." "Of course, kiddo." "What's up?" "So, you know my 16th birthday's coming up in March, right?" "Of course I do." "Well, Mom and Uncle Andrew said we could do something really special for my sweet 16, like a big party. And I was thinking, can we do it at Ponzi Vineyards, a winery in the rolling hills outside Portland, about 30 minutes from the city. The kind of place where weddings cost more than most people's cars." "That sounds amazing, Ash," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How big are we talking? Like 200 people?" "My friends from school, Mom's side of the family, some of Uncle Andrew's friends." "It'll be so fun, Dad. And I really want you to be there." She wanted me to be there. I held on to that. "Let me talk to your mom about the details," I said. "But if that's what you want, we'll make it happen." "Really? Oh my God, thank you, Dad. You're the best." She hung up, and I sat there in my living room staring at my phone. She'd called me the best. When was the last time she'd said that? 2 days later, Karen emailed me a spreadsheet. Sweet 16 budget. Ashley Lawson. I opened it. My stomach dropped. Venue rental, Ponzi Vineyards, $7,750. Catering 200 guests. Buffet style, $15,500. DJ and sound system, $4,500. Photographer plus videographer, $5,500. Floral arrangements and decor, $10. 000 suite, 16 dress, $3,720. Party favors, custom gift bags, $8,000. Invitations and signage, $2,530. Miscellaneous valet cake, etc., $20,000. Total $77,500. $77,500 for one party. I stared at the number. I did the math in my head. My salary was good $205,000 a year, but after taxes, mortgage, and the $4,575 I was already paying every month for Ashley, I didn't have $77,500 lying around. I called my bank. I asked about a personal loan. They approved me for $77,500 at 6.5% interest to be paid back over 18 months. That came out to $500 a month. $500 a month, on top of the $4,575 I was already paying. That's $9,675 a month for Ashley. For 18 months. I sat at my kitchen table calculator in front of me wondering how I'd gotten here, but then I thought about Ashley's voice on the phone. "You're the best, Dad." Maybe this was how I'd get her back. I signed the loan. The party was set for late January 2022, months before her actual birthday. Ashley wanted it early so it wouldn't conflict with spring break plans. The day of the party, I drove out to Ponzi Vineyards alone. The January sky was overcast, typical for Oregon, but the vineyard looked beautiful, rolling hills, bare grapevines stretching into the distance, string lights hung across the outdoor patio. I parked my car and walked toward the entrance. A valet took my keys. I felt underdressed in my sport coat and khakis. Most of the guests were in cocktail attire, women in dresses, men in suits. I didn't recognize half of them. Karen and Andrew were standing near the entrance greeting people as they arrived. Karen wore a navy dress, her hair perfectly styled. Andrew was in a tailored suit, shaking hands like he was hosting a business conference. I walked up to them. "Scott," Karen said, her smile tight. "Glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said. Andrew clapped me on the shoulder. "Ashley's going to be so happy you're here." I nodded. I didn't know what else to say. I found a seat near the back. The Vineyards event space was packed 200 people, just like Ashley had said. There were kids from her high school teachers, Karen's family, Andrew's business partners. People I'd never met. People who didn't know I was Ashley's father. At 6 p.m., the DJ announced Ashley's arrival. The doors opened and she walked in. She was wearing the dress I'd helped pay for, a floor-length gown in pale pink, beaded at the bodice, flowing at the skirt. Her hair was curled, pinned up with little jeweled clips. She looked so grown up. She looked beautiful. Andrew walked beside her, his arm linked with hers. Karen followed a step behind, beaming. The guests applauded. Ashley smiled, waving at the crowd. Andrew led her to the center of the room, where a spotlight was waiting. I watched from my seat in the back. The DJ started the music. Ashley gave a short speech thanking everyone for coming, thanking her mom and Uncle Andrew for making the day so special. She didn't mention me. Dinner was served. I sat at a table with people I didn't know, friends of Andrew's, I think. They made polite conversation. I smiled and nodded. I barely touched my food. Then came the father-daughter dance. The DJ's voice echoed through the speakers. "And now we invite Ashley and her father to the dance floor for a special moment." My heart jumped. I stood up, but Andrew was already walking toward Ashley. She took his hand. She smiled up at him. The opening notes of "My Girl" started playing. They stepped onto the dance floor together. I stood there frozen, halfway out of my chair. Andrew spun Ashley gently, and she laughed. The guests pulled out their phones, recording the moment. Karen stood off to the side, wiping tears from her eyes. I sat back down. No one noticed. The song played. Andrew and Ashley danced. She rested her head on his shoulder. He said something that made her laugh. I watched the whole thing. When the song ended, the guests applauded. Ashley hugged Andrew. He kissed the top of her head. She never looked at me. The party went on for another 3 hours. There was cake speeches, more dancing. I stayed until the end because I didn't know what else to do. When it was over, I found Ashley near the exit. She was saying goodbye to her friends, laughing, taking selfies. "Hey, Ash," I said, approaching her carefully. She turned, surprised. "Oh, hey, Dad." "Great party," I said. "You looked beautiful tonight." "Thanks." She glanced over her shoulder where Andrew and Karen were waiting by the car. I have to go, but thanks for coming, and for you know everything." "Of course," I said. "I'm proud of you, kiddo." She gave me a quick hug, the kind you give to someone you barely know, and then she was gone, running back to Andrew and Karen. I stood there in the parking lot watching them drive away. I got into my car and sat in the dark for a few minutes, staring at the steering wheel. $77,500 for a party where I wasn't even acknowledged, for a father-daughter dance that wasn't mine. I'd spent nearly $80,000 to watch another man be my daughter's father. That's when it hit me. I wasn't her dad anymore. I was just the guy who paid for things. I'd been reduced to a checkbook, something to open when she needed money, something to close when she didn't. I drove home alone that night, $77,500 in debt, and wondered when I'd stopped being her father. In spring 2021, Ashley called me not to catch up, but to share news. "Dad." Her voice was electric. "I got into Parsons." I was at my desk at work reviewing loan applications. I set down my pen. Parsons, I repeated. In New York. Yes, Parsons School of Design, I found out this morning. I can't believe it. I actually got in. I could hear the joy in her voice, the kind of pure, unfiltered excitement I hadn't heard from her in years. Ashley, that's incredible, I said, and I meant it. I'm so proud of you. Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you. For a moment, I just sat there holding the phone, letting those words sink in. I couldn't have done it without you. When was the last time she'd said something like that? So, she continued, I know it's expensive, but Mom said you and Andrew could split the costs, and I promise I'll work hard. This is my dream, Dad. Fashion design. It's all I've ever wanted. I remembered her as a little girl sprawled on the living room floor with crayons and construction paper drawing dresses for her dolls. She'd hold them up and say, Look, Daddy, I made this. I'd always told her she could do anything. Let me talk to your mom, I said. We'll figure it out. Really? Oh my God, thank you, I love you, Dad. She hung up before I could respond. I stared at my phone. I love you, Dad. When was the last time she'd said that? That night I looked up Parsons School of Design. It's part of the New School in Manhattan, one of the top fashion design programs in the country. Alumni include Marc Jacobs, Tom Ford, Donna Karan, names everyone knows. If Ashley graduated from Parsons, she'd have doors open that most people never even see. This was her dream. And if I could give her that, maybe, just maybe, she'd see me again. Not as the guy who paid for things, but as her father. 2 days later, Karen sent me an email with the financial breakdown. I opened it at my kitchen table, coffee in hand. The subject line read, Parsons, cost estimate. I clicked. Tuition, housing, living expenses, it all added up to over $6,000 a month. For 4 years. I sat back in my chair. I was still paying $3,600 a month in child support. That wouldn't stop until Ashley turned 18, which was still a year away. And I was 10 months into paying off the Sweet 16 loan, which was $500 a month. I did the math. $3,600 plus $500 plus $6,500. That's $15,200 a month. My take-home pay after taxes was about $12,000 a month. I'd be $3,200 short. Every single month. Unless the Sweet 16 loan ended in July. Then I'd only be paying $10,000 a month. That left me $1,900 to live on, mortgage, utilities, groceries, gas, everything. $1,900 a month. I stared at the numbers. I ran them again. They didn't change. Karen's email continued. Andrew said he's happy to help with some of the costs. We'll figure out a split that works for everyone. Let me know what you're comfortable contributing. Andrew, of course. I didn't trust him to follow through. But I also didn't have a choice. I called Karen. I'll cover it, I said. All of it. As much as I can. If Andrew wants to chip in, great. But I'm not going to let money stop Ashley from going to Parsons. Karen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, You're a good father, Scott. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just said, She deserves this. That night, I called my financial advisor. I asked if there was any way to make it work, any loans, any restructuring, anything. He was blunt. You're over-leveraged. You're already paying nearly 80% of your income toward Ashley. If you add another $6,500 a month, you'll have no cushion, no emergency fund. One medical bill, one car repair, and you're underwater. I know, I said. Then why are you doing this? I didn't have a good answer. Or maybe I did and I just didn't want to say it out loud, because if I didn't, I'd lose her completely. I wired the deposit to Parsons the next week, $6,500, the first of many. Ashley texted me a screenshot of her acceptance letter with a row of heart emojis. "Thank you, Dad. This means everything." I read that text over and over. This means everything. Maybe it would. In August 2021, Ashley moved to New York. I offered to help her move to drive out with her to set up her apartment. But Karen said Andrew had already rented a U-Haul and was making a weekend trip out of it. "It's all taken care of," Karen said. So I stayed in Oregon. Ashley texted me photos once she got there. Her dorm room in Manhattan, the Parsons campus, the city skyline from her window. She looked happy. I wired the first month's payment the next day, $6,500. I told myself it was worth it, that this was an investment in her future, that one day when she was successful and designing clothes for runway shows, she'd look back and realize how much I'd sacrificed for her. I told myself a lot of things, but deep down, I knew the truth. I was paying for a connection I no longer had. I didn't know it then, but within 2 years, Parsons would become the final breaking point. Ashley moved to New York in August 2021. I wired the first payment the next day. For the first year, I told myself it was worth it. Ashley was living her dream in New York. She'd text me photos of her classes at Parsons Design Studios with floor-to-ceiling windows, fabric samples spread across tables, sketches pinned to corkboards. She'd send me pictures of her dorm room in Manhattan, tiny but hers decorated with string lights and posters of runway shows. "This place is amazing, Dad," she texted in September. "I can't believe I'm actually here." I couldn't either. For a few months, I let myself hope. Maybe this was it. Maybe New York would give us a fresh start. Maybe distance would make her realize how much I'd done for her. But by October, the texts became less frequent. By November, they only came when rent was due. Ashley's Instagram, though, that told a different story. I'd scroll through her feed and see her life in snapshots. Sunday brunch at a trendy spot in Soho, mimosas and avocado toast. Gallery openings in Chelsea with her classmates, everyone dressed in black, holding wine glasses. Fashion Week events. Somehow she'd gotten access standing outside Lincoln Center in borrowed designer pieces. She looked happy. She looked like she belonged, and I was nowhere in it. I never appeared in her photos. She never tagged me. She never posted anything like, "Thanks to my dad for making this possible." I told myself it didn't matter. She was 18. She was finding herself. That's what college is for. But the truth was harder to swallow. I was funding a life I wasn't part of. She'd call me when something went wrong, when her roommate didn't pay utilities, when she needed money for supplies, when her computer broke. "Dad, can you Venmo me $300? My laptop died, and I need it for class." I'd send it without asking questions. But she never called just to talk. She never called to ask how I was doing. She never called to say she missed me. In December, Parsons sent home paperwork, insurance forms, emergency contact updates, that kind of thing. I got a copy in the mail because I was listed as the financial guarantor. I opened the envelope at my kitchen table. Under Emergency Contact Primary, it said Andrew Thompson. Under Relationship to Student, it said Stepfather. I stared at the form. I was paying $6,500 a month for her to be there. I was covering her rent, her tuition, her supplies, and when something went wrong, they'd call Andrew. Not me. I thought about calling the registrar's office, thought about correcting it. But what was the point? She'd made her choice. On January 14th, 2022, my phone rang at 6:30 a.m. It was a nurse from Providence Portland Medical Center. "Mr. Lawson? This is about your mother, Ruth Lawson. She was brought in an hour ago. I'm sorry to tell you this, but she passed away." It was a heart attack. Very sudden. I sat up in bed, the room spinning. What? I'm so sorry for your loss. We need you to come in to identify her and sign some paperwork. I drove to the hospital in a daze. My mom, Ruth, 83 years old, lived alone in a condo in Lake Oswego. We'd had dinner together 2 weeks ago. She'd seemed fine. Tired maybe, but fine. And now she was gone. I called Ashley from the hospital parking lot. "Hey, Dad," she answered, distracted. I could hear voices in the background. Her roommate maybe, or friends getting ready for class. "Ash, I need to tell you something." "What's up?" "Grandma passed away this morning." There was a pause. Then, oh my God, what happened? Heart attack. It was sudden. "Oh, Dad, I'm so sorry." Her voice was soft, sympathetic. For a moment, I thought she understood. "The funeral's next Friday," I said. "I'm handling the arrangements. Can you fly home?" Another pause. Longer this time. "Dad, I have midterms next week. I can't miss them. It's my first semester. If I fall behind now..." "It's your grandmother's funeral, Ashley." "I know. And I feel terrible. But Grandma would understand, right? She always said education comes first." I sat there in my car, staring at the hospital entrance phone pressed to my ear. "Right," I said quietly. "I'll send flowers," she said. "And I'll call you after the service, okay? I'm really sorry, Dad." "Yeah, me too." I hung up. The funeral was the following Friday. I arranged everything myself, the service, the casket, the burial plot. It was small. My mom didn't have many friends left. Most of them had passed years ago. Tyler Green showed up. A few neighbors. That was it. No Ashley. The flowers arrived that morning, a modest arrangement of white lilies. The card read, "Love, Ashley." I stared at it for a long time. After the service, I went back to my townhouse. It felt emptier than usual. My mom's condo sat across town, full of her things, 50 years of life packed into 100 square feet. I'd have to deal with it eventually. Probate, estate paperwork, selling the place. But not today. That night I logged into my bank account and wired Ashley's February rent. $1,010. She texted me an hour later. "Got it. Thanks, Dad." No mention of the funeral. No, "How are you holding up?" No, "I'm sorry I wasn't there." Just, "Thanks, Dad." I buried my mother alone, and I kept paying for New York. I didn't know it then, but in January 2023, Karen had been pressuring Ashley for months. I was still paying $10,000 every month, $6,500 for Parsons, $1,500 for her Manhattan rent, $2,100 for living expenses. I just sent February's payment. Ashley had texted back, "Thanks, Dad. You're the best." I thought everything was fine. I had no idea what was happening 3,000 miles away. It was mid-January during Ashley's winter break. She was back in Oregon staying with Karen and Andrew in their Lake Oswego house. I'd asked if she wanted to visit me, maybe grab lunch, but she said she was busy. "Lots of catch-up time with Mom and Andrew," she'd texted. What she didn't tell me was that Karen had called a meeting. I only learned this later, much later, after everything fell apart. Ashley told me during the trial. She told the court. She told me pieces of it in fragments through lawyers and depositions, and one tearful phone call that came too late. But here's what happened. Karen sat Ashley down at the kitchen table. Andrew was at work. It was just the two of them. "Ashley," Karen said, "we need to talk about school." Ashley looked up from her phone. What about it? It's expensive. Parsons is costing your father a lot of money. And Andrew and I have been talking. Ashley's stomach tightened. She knew that tone. It was the same tone her mother used when she was about to ask for something. Andrew's willing to help, Karen said. He wants to contribute to your tuition, but there's a condition. What condition? Karen slid a piece of paper across the table. He'll only pay for family. His family. Ashley stared at the paper. It was a name change petition, Oregon State, Clackamas County. At the top it read, Petition for Change of Name. Adult. You want me to change my last name? Ashley said. To Thompson. Yes. Why? Because Andrew's been more of a father to you than Scott ever was, Karen said, her voice firm. He's the one who's been there. He's the one who raised you. And if you want his help, if you want to finish Parsons, you need to show him you're committed to this family. Ashley felt sick. Does Dad know about this? Karen hesitated, just for a second. Then she said, He will, eventually. But let's not make it complicated. You're 19, Ashley. You're an adult. You can make your own decisions. But won't Dad have to sign? Karen shook her head. Not anymore. You're over 18. It's your choice. That wasn't entirely true. But Ashley didn't know that yet. I don't know, Mom, Ashley said, pushing the paper back. This feels wrong. Karen's expression hardened. Do you want to finish school or not? Of course I do. Then sign the paper. Ashley picked up the pen. Her hand was shaking. Your father will never even know, Karen said softly. It's just paperwork. It doesn't change who you are. Ashley signed her name. Ashley Lawson. Then, in the box below, she wrote her new name, Ashley Thompson. Karen pulled the paper back satisfied. She notarized it herself. She had a notary license through her work as an education consultant. 2 weeks later, she filed it with the Clackamas County Clerk's office. The date on the filing, January 23rd, 2023. Ashley flew back to New York the next week. She tried not to think about it. She told herself it was just paperwork, that it didn't mean anything, but she couldn't stop thinking about it. In early February, she was in her dorm room, lying in bed, scrolling through her phone. She Googled Oregon name change parent signature. The first result was from the Oregon Judicial Department website. She clicked it. If the petitioner is 18 years or older, they may file a name change petition without parental consent. Ashley sat up. She read it again. Without parental consent. Her mother had made it sound like it was required, like her dad would have to sign, like it was some kind of family decision, but it wasn't. Ashley was 19. She didn't need anyone's permission. She pulled up the email her mother had sent her, the scanned copy of the petition. She opened it. At the bottom, there were 2 signatures, Karen Thompson as witness and Ashley Lawson petitioner. No Scott. He hadn't signed. He hadn't been asked to sign. Ashley stared at the screen. Her mother had lied. Or at least she'd twisted the truth just enough to make Ashley think her dad was part of this. That he'd agreed. That he knew. But he didn't. Ashley's phone buzzed. A text from her mom. Did you tell your father about the name change? Ashley's fingers hovered over the keyboard. No, she typed back. 3 dots appeared. Then, good. Let's keep it that way. Ashley stared at the message. She could call him. Right now. She could tell him what her mother had done. She could apologize. She could explain. But then what? If her dad found out, he might stop paying. He might be furious. He might cut her off completely. And she couldn't afford that. Parsons cost $60,000 a year. Her rent was $1,500 a month. She had no savings, no job, no backup plan. Her mother had made sure of that. Ashley set her phone down. She didn't call her father. The next day, my payment went through. $6,500 for Parsons. $1,500 for rent. Ashley saw the notification on her phone, payment received. She texted me, "Thanks, Dad." She went to class. She sketched designs for her midterm project. She went to dinner with friends. She posted on Instagram a photo of her and her roommate at a coffee shop in the West Village, smiling, cappuccinos in hand. She didn't tell me. Not in February. Not in early March. Not even when I wired the next payment. She knew what she'd done. She knew it was wrong. But she chose the money. In February 2023, I drove to the Clackamas County Clerk's office to file my mother's probate paperwork. It had been a month since Ruth's funeral. A month since I'd buried her alone. A month since Ashley had sent flowers instead of showing up. I still hadn't cleaned out her condo. I couldn't bring myself to do it yet. But the legal side of things couldn't wait. Oregon probate law requires you to file within a certain time frame, and I was running out of time. So I took a half-day off work, printed out the forms my lawyer had sent me, and drove to the county office in Oregon City. It was one of those gray February days, cold, drizzling, the kind of weather that makes you want to stay in bed. The clerk's office was in a squat government building near the courthouse, the kind of place with fluorescent lights and linoleum floors. I walked up to the counter. A woman in her mid-40s looked up from her computer. "Can I help you?" she asked. "I need to file probate paperwork for my mother's estate," I said, sliding the folder across the counter. She opened it, scanning the documents. "Okay. Ruth Lawson, deceased January 14th. You're the executor." "Yes." She typed something into her system. "Marital status. Divorced. Any children?" "One. A daughter." "Name. Ashley Lawson," she typed, then frowned. She typed again. "I'm not seeing an Ashley Lawson in the system," she said. My stomach tightened. "What do you mean? There's no record of an Ashley Lawson with your listed address or date of birth." I stared at her. "That's impossible. She's my daughter. Born March 14th, 2004. She clicked a few more times. Then she paused. "Oh," she said. "Here she is." "Thank God," I said, exhaling. "Ashley Thompson." I froze. "What? Ashley Thompson?" she repeated, looking at me. "Date of birth March 14th, 2004. Clackamas County resident. That's your daughter, right?" I couldn't speak. "Sir," she said. "Thompson," I said slowly. "Her last name is Thompson." "Yes." According to our records, she filed a name change petition on January 23rd of this year. It was approved and processed. January 23rd, 3 weeks ago. "Can I get a copy of that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The name change record." "Yes." She hesitated. "Are you listed as a parent on the original petition?" "I don't know." "Let me check." She typed again, then nodded. "You're listed as the biological father, so yes, I can provide you a copy. It's public record. Give me a minute." She disappeared into a back room. I stood there at the counter, gripping the edge, trying to breathe. Thompson. Ashley Thompson. She came back a few minutes later with a printed document. She slid it across the counter. "Here you go. That'll be $5 for the copy." I handed her a 10. I didn't wait for change. I walked out of that building, got into my car, and sat in the parking lot, staring at the paper in my hands. Petition for change of name. Adult petitioner. Ashley Marie Lawson requested name. Ashley Marie Thompson. Date of birth March 14th, 2004. Reason for change, personal preference filed January 23rd, 2023, notarized by Karen Thompson. Parent/guardian signature N/a petitioner is 18 years or older. I read it 3 times. Personal preference. That's what she'd written. Not legal reasons. Not family matters. Not even stepfather adoption. Personal preference. And at the bottom where it said parent/guardian signature, it said N/a. She didn't need my permission. She was 19. She could do whatever she wanted. But she hadn't told me. She'd erased my name from hers, and she hadn't said a word. I drove home on autopilot. I don't remember the drive. I don't remember unlocking my door or walking inside. I just remember sitting at my kitchen table in the dark, staring at that piece of paper. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Ashley. I didn't answer. It rang again. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a text came through. "Dad, did you get my call? Rent's due tomorrow. Can you send it tonight?" I stared at the message. Rent. Of course. That's why she was calling. That's why she always called. I opened my banking app. I pulled up my automatic payments. 3 scheduled for tomorrow. Parsons tuition $6,500, Manhattan rent $1,500, living expenses $2,100. I canceled all 3. Then I put my phone face down on the table and sat in the dark. The next morning, Ashley called 4 times. I didn't answer. By afternoon, there were 6 more missed calls, 3 voicemails, 10 texts. "Dad, what's going on? Did something happen? Please call me back. I'm serious. I need the rent money today. Dad, please." I didn't respond. 3 days later, Karen called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Scott, I don't know what's going on, but Ashley says you haven't responded to her. She needs the rent payment. Please call me back." I deleted it. A week after I'd stopped the payments, I got a text from an unknown number. I opened it. It was from a law office. The message read, "Mr. Lawson, this is Jonathan Pierce, attorney for Karen Thompson. Please contact my office regarding a legal matter. 503-555-0147. I didn't call back. 2 weeks after I'd stopped paying, a certified letter arrived at my door. I signed for it, opened it at my kitchen table. Summons. Family Court. Clackamas County. Karen Thompson was suing me for abandonment of child support obligations and educational expenses. She was demanding retroactive payment for the 3 months I'd stopped paying ongoing monthly payments until Ashley's graduation court fees and penalties. The hearing was set for March 15th, 2023. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it, set it on the table, and called Paul Jackson. "Paul, it's Scott Lawson." "Scott. Been a while. What's going on?" "I need you to represent me in family court," I said. "My ex-wife is suing me." "What for?" "She says I abandoned my obligations. But that's not what happened." "What did happen?" I looked down at the name change petition still sitting on my table. "My daughter erased me," I said, "and I stopped paying." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Tell me everything," Paul said. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Karen's lawyer. "Mr. Lawson, this is Jonathan Pierce, attorney for Karen Thompson. My client is filing a motion to compel child support and educational expenses. We'll need to schedule a hearing." I was at work when the call came. I stepped out of a meeting, walked to an empty conference room, and closed the door. "I'm listening," I said. His voice was calm, professional, the kind of voice that's had this conversation 100 times. "My client alleges that you've abandoned your financial obligations to your daughter, Ashley Thompson. You've ceased all payments, tuition, rent, living expenses without notice or justification. As a result, Ashley is facing eviction and may be forced to withdraw from school." I didn't say anything. "We're seeking a court order requiring you to resume payments immediately," he continued. "Specifically, we're asking for retroactive payment of $19,500 to cover the 3 months you've withheld, plus ongoing monthly payments of $6,500 until Ashley's graduation in 2025. Additionally, we're seeking penalties and reimbursement for legal fees. $19,500, 3 months of Parsons tuition." "And if I refuse?" I asked. "Then we'll see you in court, Mr. Lawson. My client is prepared to argue that your actions constitute willful abandonment and emotional harm. We'll be filing the motion this week." "Fine," I said. "I'll have my attorney contact you." I hung up. I sat in that conference room for a few minutes, staring at the wall. Karen was suing me. Of course she was. I called Paul Jackson. "Scott," he answered. "I've been wondering when I'd hear from you again." "I need you," I said. "Karen's taking me to court." "What for?" "She says I abandoned Ashley, stopped paying her expenses." There was a pause. Then, "Did you?" "Yes." Why, I told him everything. The name change, the discovery at the county clerk's office, the decision to stop paying. When I finished, Paul was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Good. Good. You have leverage. Let me see the paperwork. Come to my office tomorrow. Bring everything: bank statements, receipts, emails, texts, the name change petition. Everything." I met Paul the next morning at his office in downtown Portland. He had a corner conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. I brought 3 boxes of documents. Bank statements dating back to 2004. Receipts for volleyball camps, school tuition, birthday parties. Emails with Karen negotiating expenses. Text messages from Ashley asking for money. Paul spread everything across the table. He worked through it methodically, making notes, highlighting key transactions. After 2 hours, he sat back. "You've spent over $800,000 on her," he said. I blinked. "That much, at least. Probably closer to $900,000 when we add it all up. And she erased your name from hers." He tapped the name change petition. "January 23rd. Filed without your knowledge." "Can they make me keep paying?" I asked. Paul shook his head. "Oregon law doesn't mandate parental support for college expenses once a child turns 18. Child support ends at 18. You've been paying voluntarily for the past year. So I don't have to pay. Legally, no. But Karen's going to argue moral obligation. She'll say you've been Ashley's primary financial supporter her whole life, that stopping now is cruel and punitive." "And what do we argue?" Paul leaned forward. "We argue that Ashley made a legal, deliberate choice to sever her relationship with you. She didn't just change her name, she replaced you with Andrew Thompson. And you're not obligated to fund someone else's daughter." I stared at him. "She's still my daughter." "Is she?" Paul asked. "According to the state of Oregon, she's Ashley Thompson, not Lawson. She made that choice. You didn't." He was right. I knew he was right. Stay firm, Paul said. Don't answer her calls. Don't send money. Don't apologize. We go to trial, we present the evidence, and we let the judge decide. I paid Paul a $5,000 retainer that afternoon. Over the next 2 weeks, Ashley called me 17 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. Dad, please pick up. I don't understand what's happening. I need to talk to you, please. My landlord is threatening to evict me. I don't have anywhere to go. She sent texts. Dad, please, I need the rent money. I'm going to lose my apartment. Why are you doing this? Please just talk to me. I'm sorry if I did something wrong. I read every message. I didn't respond to any of them. Karen texted me too. You're hurting your daughter. How can you live with yourself? I deleted it. Paul told me not to engage. Anything you say can be used against you in court. Stay silent. So I did. Paul spent those 2 weeks building our case. He compiled every payment I'd ever made: child support, tuition, extracurriculars, the Sweet 16 loan Parsons. He organized it into a timeline, a spreadsheet, a narrative. This is your defense, he said, showing me the binder. 19 years of financial support, over $800,000, and in return, she erased you. We met twice more before the trial. Paul walked me through what to expect. Karen's lawyer will paint you as vindictive, angry, a father punishing his daughter for a decision her mother pressured her into. And what do I say? You tell the truth, that you discovered the name change by accident, that you felt betrayed, that you decided you were no longer obligated to fund someone who didn't want to be your daughter. What if the judge sides with her? Paul looked at me seriously. Then you pay. But I don't think that'll happen. Ashley's 19. She's an adult. She made a choice. You're allowed to make one too. The trial was set for March 15th, 2023. March 15th, 2023. I sat at the defense table next to Paul Jackson. Across the aisle, Karen and Ashley sat behind Jonathan Pierce. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Clackamas County Family Court Courtroom 3B. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, a bailiff standing by the door. A court reporter sat below the judge's bench, fingers poised over her machine. Judge Barbara Sullivan entered. We all stood. She was 58, gray hair pulled back in a bun, reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked like someone who'd seen every version of family drama and had no patience for theatrics. Be seated, she said. I sat. My hands were shaking. I folded them in my lap. Karen didn't look at me. Ashley stared at the table in front of her. Judge Sullivan reviewed the case file. Then she looked up. This is a motion to compel child support and educational expenses. Ms. Thompson, your attorney, may proceed with opening statements. Jonathan Pierce stood. He buttoned his suit jacket, walked to the center of the room. Your Honor, he began, this is a case about a father who abandoned his daughter when she needed him most. I felt Paul's hand on my arm. Stay calm. Scott Lawson has paid for Ashley's education and living expenses for years. Pierce continued. But in February of this year, without warning, without explanation, he stopped. He stopped paying her tuition at Parsons School of Design in New York. He stopped paying her rent. He left her facing eviction, forced to drop out of school, all because he was angry about a name change. He paused, letting that sink in. A name change, Your Honor, that's all. Ashley legally changed her last name to match her stepfather's, a man who's been in her life since she was 9 years old. A man who's been more of a father to her than Mr. Lawson has in recent years. And for that, Mr. Lawson punished her. He cut her off financially, knowing she had no other means of support. That's not parenting. That's spite. Pierce sat down. Judge Sullivan turned to our table. Mr. Jackson. Paul stood. He didn't button his jacket. He just walked forward calm like he'd done this 1,000 times. Your Honor, Paul said, Mr. Lawson has supported his daughter for 19 years. He's paid over $800,000 in child support, tuition, extracurriculars, and living expenses. He's never missed a payment. He's never complained. Paul turned, gestured toward Karen and Ashley. But in January of this year, Ashley Lawson legally changed her name to Ashley Thompson. She didn't tell her father. She didn't ask for his blessing. She simply erased him from her identity. And when Mr. Lawson discovered this by accident while filing probate paperwork for his late mother, he made a decision. Paul turned back to the judge. He decided he was no longer obligated to fund the life of someone who didn't want to be his daughter. Ashley Thompson made a choice. So did Scott Lawson. And Oregon law is clear: parental support for adult children is voluntary, not mandatory. Paul sat down. Judge Sullivan made a note. Then she said, "Call your first witness, Mr. Pierce." The plaintiff calls Karen Thompson. Karen stood. She walked to the witness stand, placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. She looked composed, confident. Jonathan Pierce approached. Ms. Thompson, can you describe your relationship with the defendant? Scott and I were married for 11 years, Karen said. We divorced in 2011. We share a daughter, Ashley. And how would you characterize Mr. Lawson's involvement in Ashley's life after the divorce? Minimal, Karen said. He saw her every other weekend, if that. He missed school events, recitals, games. He was always working. I was the one who raised her. I clenched my jaw. Paul touched my arm again. And your current husband, Andrew Thompson, how does he fit into Ashley's life? Andrew's been a father to her, Karen said. He's coached her volleyball team. He's attended her parent-teacher conferences. He's been there in ways Scott never was. And did Ashley choose to change her last name to Thompson? Yes. It was her decision. Did you encourage it? I supported it, Karen said carefully. She wanted to feel like part of our family. Pierce nodded. No further questions. Paul stood. He walked slowly toward the witness stand. Ms. Thompson, he said, you testified that the name change was Ashley's decision. Is that correct? Yes. Did you tell Ashley that Andrew would only pay for her education if she changed her name? Karen's eyes flickered. No. No. I don't recall saying that. Paul pulled out his phone. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit A, text messages between Ms. Thompson and Ashley dated January 10, 2023. Judge Sullivan nodded. Proceed. Paul read from the screen. Andrew's willing to help with Parsons, but only for family. His family. He looked up at Karen. Do you recognize that message? Karen's face went pale. That was taken out of context. The out of context, Paul repeated. Thompson, did you or did you not tell Ashley that she needed to change her name in order to receive financial support from Andrew? I was trying to help her, Karen said, her voice rising, though Scott wasn't paying enough. She needed, please answer the question, yes or no. Karen looked at Judge Sullivan, then back at Paul. Yes, I told her that. And did you tell Mr. Lawson about the name change before it was finalized? No. Why not? Because I knew he'd be upset. So you kept it secret. I was protecting Ashley. Protecting her from what her father, Karen, didn't answer. No further questions, Paul said. Karen stepped down her hands, trembling. Call your next witness, Judge Sullivan said. The plaintiff calls Ashley Thompson. My heart stopped. Ashley stood. She walked to the witness stand, her steps slow, uncertain. She looked younger than 19. She looked terrified. She swore and sat down. Jonathan Pierce approached gently. Ashley, can you tell the court why you changed your name? Ashley's voice was barely above a whisper. My mom said it was necessary for financial aid, that Andrew would help pay for school if I was part of the family. And did you want to change your name? Ashley hesitated. I didn't want to hurt my dad, but I needed the money for Parsons. I couldn't afford it on my own. Did you tell your father about the name change? No. So to see, why not? Because I was scared he'd be angry. Pierce nodded sympathetically. No further questions. Paul stood. He walked toward Ashley, his expression neutral. Ms. Thompson, he said. When did you realize the name change wasn't actually necessary for financial aid? Ashley looked at her hands. She didn't answer. Ms. Thompson, Judge Sullivan prompted. February, Ashley whispered. February 2023, Paul asked. 1 month before this lawsuit was filed. Yes. And did you tell your father? No. Why not? Ashley's eyes filled with tears. Because I was scared. Scared of what? That he'd stop paying. Paul let that hang in the air. So you knew that changing your name would hurt him, but you did it anyway, because you wanted the money. Ashley was crying now. I didn't know what else to do. You could have called him. You could have told him the truth. You could have apologized. I know. Ashley sobbed. I know. But I was scared. Paul looked at her for a long moment. Then he said quietly, no further questions. Ashley stepped down, still crying. She walked back to Karen, who put an arm around her. I sat there staring at the table. Judge Sullivan called a 10-minute recess. Paul turned to me. You're up next? Ready? I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. When court reconvened, Judge Sullivan looked at me. Mr. Lawson, please take the stand. Then it was my turn to testify. I took the stand and placed my hand on the Bible. I wasn't nervous. I'd prepared for this. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. I could feel Karen's eyes on me. Ashley's too. Judge Sullivan looked at me. Please state your name for the record. Scott Lawson. Paul stood. Mr. Lawson, how long have you been Ashley's father? 19 years. Since she was born in March 2004. And how much have you spent supporting her over those 19 years? I took a breath. Over $876,000. There was a murmur in the courtroom. Judge Sullivan glanced up from her notes. Paul nodded. Can you break that down for us? Child support from 2011 to 2023, $561,600. Private high school tuition at Jesuit, $70,000. Parsons School of Design tuition and housing, $117,000. Her Sweet 16 party, $77,500. And then there were gifts, volleyball camps, tutoring, clothes, everything else. That's another $50,000 roughly. Paul let that sit for a moment. Then he said, Why did you stop paying? I looked at Ashley. She was staring at the table, tears streaming down her face. Because I found out she'd changed her name, I said. I went to the county clerk's office to file paperwork for my mother's estate, and the clerk told me there was no Ashley Lawson in the system. There was only Ashley Thompson. How did that make you feel? I paused. Like I'd been erased. Like 19 years of being her father didn't matter. Like I was just a bank account. Did you ask her why she did it? No, I didn't call her. I didn't ask. I just stopped paying. Why? Because I realized something, I said. I'd been paying for a connection I didn't have. I'd been trying to buy her love with money, and it wasn't working. She didn't want to be my daughter. She wanted to be Andrew's, so I let her be. Paul nodded. No further questions. Jonathan Pierce stood. He walked toward me slowly, deliberately. Mr. Lawson, he said, isn't this really about control? No. You wanted to punish Ashley for choosing her stepfather over you. No, I said again. This is about respect. Ashley chose Andrew. That's her right. But I don't have to fund that choice. She's 19 years old. She's still a child. She's an adult, I said. Old enough to change her name legally. Old enough to make decisions. And she made hers. But she was manipulated by her mother. You heard Ms. Thompson's testimony. Karen pressured her. I did hear that, I said. And I also heard Ashley testify that she knew the truth in February, 1 month before this lawsuit. She knew her mother had lied. She knew the name change wasn't necessary, and she didn't tell me. She just kept taking my money. Jonathan paused. Do you love your daughter, Mr. Lawson? I looked at Ashley again. She was still crying. I love Ashley Lawson, I said quietly. I don't know who Ashley Thompson is. Jonathan stared at me for a moment. Then he said, no further questions. I stepped down. Paul stood again. Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit B, a comprehensive financial record of Mr. Lawson's expenditures on Ashley's behalf. He pulled up a spreadsheet on the courtroom screen. It was everything we'd compiled over the past 2 weeks. Every payment, every receipt, every transaction. Child support. 2011 to 2023, $561,600. Jesuit High School tuition. 2014 to 2021, $70,200. Parsons tuition plus housing, 2021 to 2023, $117,000. Sweet 16 party, 2020, $77,500. Miscellaneous gifts, camps lessons, $50,000. Total $876,300. Paul let the numbers speak for themselves. Then he said, Your Honor, Mr. Lawson has supported his daughter financially for 19 years. He's never missed a payment. He's never asked for anything in return. But in all that time, not once did Ashley say thank you. Not once did she acknowledge what he was doing for her. And in the last 2 years, she stopped calling him Dad. She started calling Andrew her father. She posted photos with Andrew on Instagram, tagged him, thanked him. Scott Lawson wasn't even mentioned. He turned to face Karen and Ashley. And when Mr. Lawson discovered that Ashley had legally erased his name, replaced Lawson with Thompson, he made a decision. He decided he was done being a wallet. He decided he was done funding a relationship that didn't exist. Paul turned back to the judge. Oregon law is clear. Parental support after age 18 is voluntary. Ashley Thompson is a legal adult. She made a choice. Mr. Lawson made one too. Judge Sullivan took off her reading glasses. She looked at me, then at Ashley, then at Karen. "I've reviewed the evidence," she said, "and I've heard the testimonies. This is a difficult case. There's no question that Mr. Lawson's decision to stop financial support was abrupt. It caused hardship for Ashley. But the law is clear." She looked at Jonathan Pierce. "Oregon does not mandate parental support for adult children pursuing higher education. Child support ends at 18. Any financial support beyond that is voluntary." She turned to me. "Mr. Lawson has no legal obligation to continue paying for Ashley's education or living expenses. Ashley Thompson, and I use that name deliberately, is a 19-year-old legal adult who made a deliberate choice to change her identity. Mr. Lawson is entitled to respond to that choice." She looked at Ashley. "You made a decision, Ms. Thompson, and decisions have consequences." She picked up her gavel. "The motion is denied. Mr. Lawson is not required to make any retroactive payments. He has no ongoing financial obligation to the plaintiff. This case is dismissed." Karen let out a choked sound. Ashley buried her face in her hands. Then Andrew stood up from the back row. "Your Honor," he said, his voice loud, "if I may, I'll take care of it. I'll handle Ashley's expenses. Tuition, rent, everything. You have my word." Judge Sullivan looked at him for a moment. Then she nodded. "Very well, Mr. Thompson. Then we're adjourned." She struck the gavel. The courtroom erupted. Karen was on her feet, arguing with Jonathan Pierce. Ashley was sobbing. Andrew walked over to them, putting a hand on Ashley's shoulder. Paul turned to me. "You okay?" I nodded. I couldn't speak. We walked out of that courtroom together. Outside, the hallway was empty. I leaned against the wall, closed my eyes. "You did good," Paul said. "I don't feel good," I said. "You will," he said. "Give it time." But I didn't know if that was true. I'd won. But I didn't feel like I'd won anything. For 2 months, Andrew kept his word. He paid Ashley's rent in March. He paid it in April, $5,000 each month, tuition, housing, living expenses. I learned this later from Tyler, who heard it from a mutual friend in their Lake Oswego neighborhood. I wasn't involved. I didn't ask. But the story found its way back to me anyway. In March 2023, after the trial, Andrew had stood in that courtroom and made a promise. He'd looked Judge Sullivan in the eye and said he would take care of everything, and for 60 days he did. Then May came, and the money stopped. Ashley called Karen. Karen called Andrew. Andrew didn't answer. His phone went straight to voicemail. The first week of May passed. Then the second. By the third week, Ashley's landlord in Manhattan sent a warning rent was overdue. If it wasn't paid by June 1st, eviction proceedings would begin. Karen panicked. She called Andrew's office. The receptionist said he wasn't available. She called his cell again. Nothing. She drove to the Lake Oswego house, the $1.4 million house they'd bought together in 2013, and found his car gone. The garage was empty. The lights were off. That's when she started digging. Andrew Thompson had built his life on appearances. 5 successful restaurant franchises across the Portland metro area, a reputation as a savvy businessman, a big house, a new SUV every 2 years. He'd funded Ashley's lifestyle for years or so, it seemed. But the truth, as Karen discovered in May 2023, was far uglier. Between 2020 and 2022, Andrew had expanded too fast. He'd opened 5 locations in 2 years, riding the post-pandemic dining boom. He'd taken out loans. He'd leveraged the Lake Oswego house. He'd assumed the momentum would last forever. It didn't. By 2022, inflation hit. Food costs spiked. Labor costs rose. Customers tightened their budgets. 3 of Andrew's 5 restaurants started losing money. He kept them open anyway, pouring cash into failing locations, convinced he could turn things around. He couldn't. In January 2023, one location closed. In March, another. By May, a third was shuttered. The bank called. The debt leveraged against the house, against the business, against everything came due. Andrew owed over $800,000. He had no way to pay it. So he did what desperate men do. He ran. In June, Ashley's rent went unpaid. Her landlord sent a final notice. Karen called Andrew's business partner, who told her the truth: the company was insolvent. The remaining 2 restaurants were being sold to cover debts. Andrew had stopped answering calls from anyone. Karen searched the house. She went through his office. She opened drawers, checked files, looked for anything that might explain where he'd gone. And that's when she found the bank statements. Transfers, dozens of them, small amounts. At first, $2,000 here, $3,000 there, moved from their joint account into a separate account she'd never seen before. The transfers had started in February 2023, right after the trial. Over 4 months, Andrew had quietly moved more than $40,000. Karen grabbed his laptop. It was still logged in. She opened his email. Nothing. Then she opened his text messages. And there it was, a thread labeled M. The messages went back 6 months. Casual at first, then warmer, then explicit. Photos, plans, promises. M was Melissa Clark, a woman in Seattle. A woman Andrew had been seeing since late 2022. Karen scrolled through the messages, her hands shaking. In one dated April 2023, Andrew had written, "I'll be out by August. Just need to wrap things up here." In another from May, "She's losing the house anyway. I'm not sticking around for that." The final message sent June 15th. "On my way. See you tonight." Karen sat in the empty house and stared at the screen. Then she called him. This time he answered. "Where are you?" Karen's voice was tight controlled. "Seattle," Andrew said. No hesitation, no apology. "You said you'd pay for Ashley. You promised in court." "I paid for 2 months. That's all I could do. The business is gone, Karen. I'm done." "You're done. We're married. Ashley isn't mine." Andrew cut her off. His voice was cold flat. "She's Scott's problem. I'm not paying for another man's kid anymore." Karen felt her chest tighten. "You raised her. You were her father for 10 years. I was her stepfather. There's a difference. You made her change her name." "You made her change her name," Andrew snapped. "I never asked for that. You wanted me to fund Parsons, so you pressured her into it. Don't put that on me." Karen's voice cracked. "We're married, Andrew." He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "We got married for the tax break, Karen. You were convenient. Now you're expensive. I'm out." There was a pause. Karen could hear traffic in the background, a woman's voice faint, asking if he was ready. "Who's that?" Karen whispered. "Someone who doesn't need me to be an ATM for her." The line went dead. Karen sat in the silence of the Lake Oswego house. The house that was no longer hers. The house the bank would seize in 3 months, and realized she had nothing left. Andrew filed for divorce on August 7th, 2023. Karen received the papers by certified mail. The filing cited irreconcilable differences. Andrew requested no alimony, no assets, no contact. He wanted out clean. By mid-August, he was gone. The house went into foreclosure. Karen moved into a small apartment in Beaverton, $1,200 a month, one bedroom. Ashley stayed in New York, scrambling to find roommates, working part-time at a cafe, barely scraping by. Karen called her daughter every night. Ashley cried. Karen cried. Neither of them mentioned my name. Karen and Ashley now had to survive on their own, and they had nowhere left to turn. In September 2023, 6 months after the trial, my phone rang. It was Karen. I almost didn't answer. Her name on the screen felt like a ghost. I hadn't spoken to her since March, since Judge Sullivan had dismissed her lawsuit. I'd heard through Tyler that Andrew had left. I'd heard the house was in foreclosure. I'd heard Ashley had dropped out of Parsons. But I hadn't called. I hadn't reached out. I'd stayed silent. Now she was calling me. I answered on the 4th ring. Scott. Her voice was thin, strained. I need to talk to you. About what? I kept my tone neutral. Ashley. She can't pay her rent. She's going to be evicted. The landlord gave her until the end of the month. I don't have the money, and Andrew's gone, I said. There was a pause. Yes. So why are you calling me? Because she's your daughter. Karen's voice cracked. She needs help, Scott. She's not my daughter. I cut her off. My voice was calm, steady. She's Ashley Thompson, Andrew's daughter. Where is he? Karen's breath hitched. He's in Seattle, with someone else. He left us. He stopped paying everything. He filed for divorce. Scott, please. Karen. I said her name once, quietly. You made a choice. Ashley made a choice. You both decided I wasn't her father anymore. You took my name off the birth certificate. You sued me when I stopped paying. You told a judge I was obligated, and the judge said no. That was different. It wasn't different. It was exactly what it was. You chose Andrew. Ashley chose Andrew. Now Andrew's gone and you're calling me because you need money. She's struggling, Scott. She's working in a cafe. She's barely making rent. She had to leave school. That's not my problem. Silence. Then Karen's voice, barely a whisper. Please. I closed my eyes. I thought about the Sweet 16. I thought about the $77,500 I'd borrowed. I thought about the father-daughter dance I never got. I thought about the emergency contact form at Parsons with Andrew's name on it. I thought about the day I discovered she'd changed her name, and the way I'd felt standing in that probate office staring at a document that erased me. I'm not a backup plan, I said. I'm not someone you call when the first option doesn't work out. You made your choice. She made hers. Now you both live with it. Scott. I hung up. The phone didn't ring again. I sat in my living room in Lake Oswego, the same townhouse I'd moved into after the divorce in 2011. The same place I'd lived alone for 12 years. The same place I'd wired payments from every month, $3,600, then $4,575, then $10,100 for a daughter who'd stopped being mine long before she'd legally changed her name. And for the first time in years, I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even relief. Just quiet. 2 weeks later, Tyler called. He'd run into Karen at a Safeway in Beaverton. She looked tired, he said. Older. She'd told him Ashley had come back to Portland. She'd dropped out of Parsons in August after finishing 2 years. She couldn't afford the rent in New York. She couldn't afford tuition. Andrew had promised to cover everything, but when the money stopped in May, she'd tried to hold on. She'd worked at a cafe near Union Square. She'd picked up shifts at a bookstore, but it wasn't enough. By August, she'd given up. She'd packed her things, left the Manhattan apartment, and flown home to Portland. She moved into Karen's new place, a small one-bedroom apartment in Beaverton, $100 a month. Karen had rented it after the Lake Oswego house went into foreclosure. The bank had seized it in July. Karen got nothing from the sale. Andrew had leveraged the house for his failing restaurants, and when the debt came due, the equity evaporated. Karen sold what she could: furniture, jewelry. She went back to teaching part-time at a Title I elementary school in Hillsborough. $28 an hour, 20 hours a week. It was enough to cover rent, utilities, groceries. Barely. Ashley got a job at Nordstrom in downtown Portland. Sales associate. She worked the floor folding clothes, helping customers, ringing up purchases. It wasn't Parsons. It wasn't fashion design. It wasn't the dream she'd posted about on Instagram 2 years earlier. It was survival. Tyler said Ashley looked different, quieter. She didn't smile much. She didn't talk about New York. When people asked about school, she said she was taking a break. Karen never mentioned my name, Tyler said. And Ashley never asked about me. I thanked Tyler for the update. I didn't ask for more. I heard they moved to Beaverton. I didn't reach out. For me, it was over. For the first time in 19 years, I had money left over at the end of the month. It was a strange feeling. I'd open my bank account on the 1st of October, then again on the 31st, and the balance would be higher. Not by a little, by a lot. I wasn't wiring $6,500 to Parsons. I wasn't transferring $1,500 for Manhattan rent. I wasn't covering $2,100 in miscellaneous expenses that never seemed to end. I was just living. My net income as VP of commercial banking at Truist was roughly $12,000 a month after taxes. My living expenses mortgage on the Lake Oswego townhouse paid off in 2018 utilities. Groceries, insurance, gas ran about $2,000 a month. For 19 years, the remaining $10,000 had gone straight to Ashley. Every dollar. Every month. Now it stayed with me. By late 2023, I'd finished paying off the Sweet 16 loan. That final $500 payment in July had felt like cutting a chain. I sat in my living room after I'd hit confirm on the bank transfer, and I realized I was done. No more child support, no more tuition, no more loans, no more debt tied to a daughter who'd legally removed my name. I was free. In November, I flew to Costa Rica, 10 days, solo. I stayed in a small beach town on the Pacific coast, rented a surfboard I barely knew how to use, ate fresh fish every night, and watched the sunset from a hammock. I didn't check my phone. I didn't think about work. I didn't think about Ashley. I just existed. When I got back, I bought a new car, a 2024 Honda Accord. Nothing flashy, but it was mine and I paid cash. I traded in my old 2015 Camry and drove off the lot with zero financing, zero debt. It felt absurd. I was 50 years old, and this was the first time in 2 decades I'd bought something for myself without calculating how it would affect Ashley's expenses. I upgraded my apartment. New couch, new TV. I hired someone to repaint the living room. I bought art, actual art, not posters, and hung it on the walls. Small things, but they mattered. For the first time since 1999, I felt like I was living in my own life. Then, in December 2023, Tyler invited me to a holiday barbecue at his house in West Lynn. I almost didn't go. Social events had always felt like obligations. Small talk forced smiles, people asking about my daughter. But Tyler insisted. "You need to get out," he'd said. "You've been a ghost for 2 years." So I went. That's where I met Diane Foster. She was standing near the grill laughing at something Tyler's wife had said. She had dark hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, a navy sweater jeans. She looked easy, comfortable, not trying too hard, not performing. Tyler introduced us. Scott, this is Diane. Diane Scott. Diane's a marketing director at Intel. Scott's in banking. You two can talk about boring adult things. Diane smiled. I promise my job's not that boring. Neither is mine, I said. Most days. We talked for 2 hours, about work, sure, but also about travel, books, the best coffee shops in Portland. She'd been to Costa Rica 3 times. She loved Manuel Antonio. I told her I'd just been there. She asked where I stayed. I told her. She laughed and said she'd stayed at the same place 2 years earlier. It felt easy. Before I left, she gave me her number. If you ever want to grab coffee and compare Costa Rica notes, she said. I texted her the next day. We met for coffee the following week. Then dinner. Then a hike at Silver Falls. On our 3rd date over dinner at a small Italian place in Lake Oswego, I told her everything. About Karen. About Ashley. About the name changed the lawsuit, the $876,000. I told her about the Sweet 16, the father-daughter dance. I never got the emergency contact form with Andrew's name. I told her about Karen's phone call in September and how I'd said no. I expected judgment, or pity, or advice I didn't ask for. Instead, Diane put down her wine glass and looked at me. You did the right thing, she said. I blinked. Most people don't see it that way. Most people enable the people they love, she said. They call it loyalty. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling, and you can't enable someone into being a decent person. I stared at her. She reached across the table and touched my hand. You didn't abandon your daughter, Scott. She abandoned you, and you finally let her go. That was the moment I knew. In January 2024, Diane and I made it official. She didn't need me to rescue her. She didn't need me to fund her life. She had her own career, her own home, her own savings. She didn't want a provider. She wanted a partner. And for the first time in my life, I understood the difference. I'd spent so many years focused on being needed that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be loved. By March 2024, I was happier than I'd been in decades. Then the letter arrived. The envelope was handwritten. Return address, Beaverton, Oregon. I almost threw it away. It arrived on a Tuesday in mid-March 2024. I'd just gotten home from work when I saw it in the mail stack. Thin white, my name in careful blue cursive. No return name, just a Beaverton address I didn't recognize. But I knew the handwriting. I'd seen it on birthday cards when Ashley was 10 on thank you notes after Christmas. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I set it on the counter and walked away. I made dinner, watched TV, did everything I could to ignore the envelope sitting there like a small bomb. Finally, around 9 o'clock, I opened it. Inside was a single handwritten page. Dear Dad, I don't know if you'll read this, but I needed to write it anyway. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I need you to know I understand now. I understand what I took from you. When Mom asked me to change my name in January 2023, she told me it was the only way Andrew would pay for Parsons. She said you'd never know. I was 19 and scared of losing my tuition, so I signed. A few weeks later, I looked up the law. I realized Mom had lied. I didn't need your signature. I was legally an adult, and I'd already done it. I knew it was wrong. I knew you'd find out. But I didn't call you. I kept taking your money every month and said nothing. I chose the money. I've been working at Nordstrom in Portland for almost a year now. I dropped out of Parsons in August 2023. I live with Mom in Beaverton. I make $19 an hour folding clothes and helping customers. It's not what I thought my life would be. But it's teaching me things Parsons never did. I've learned what it feels like to earn something, to pay rent, buy groceries, budget for gas. I've learned that money doesn't just appear. Someone has to work for it. For 19 years, that someone was you. I don't expect you to forgive me. I understand if you never want to see me, but I needed you to know I'm sorry. And I'm trying to be better. Ashley. I read the letter 3 times. The first time I felt anger, the same cold fury I'd felt in the probate office a year earlier. She knew in February and said nothing. The second time I felt sadness for the scared 19-year-old who'd been manipulated, for the choices made out of fear. The third time I just felt tired. I called Diane. She came over an hour later. I handed her the letter without speaking. She read it, then looked at me. "What do you want to do?" she asked. "I don't know if I can go back to being her father." Diane nodded. "You don't have to, but you can decide if you want to forgive her." "What's the difference?" "Forgiveness is for you," she said. "Not for her. You forgive so you can let go." I thought about that for 2 weeks. Finally, in early April, I texted the number Ashley had included. "I'll meet you. Laurelhurst Park. Saturday at 2 p.m. She replied instantly, "I'll be there. Thank you." Laurelhurst Park sits in southeast Portland trees, walking paths, a small pond. I arrived 15 minutes early and sat on a bench near the water. Ashley arrived exactly at 2. She looked older. Hair shorter, pulled back. Jeans Nordstrom name tag still clipped to her jacket. Nervous. She sat down, leaving space between us. "Thank you for coming," she said. I nodded. "I read your letter." I meant every word. I looked at her, really looked. She had my mother's eyes. Ruth's green-gray eyes. "I forgive you," I said. Her breath caught. "You do. Not for you, for me. I can't carry that anger forever." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "But that doesn't mean we go back to how things were," I continued. "I'm not your ATM. I'm not your backup plan. I won't start paying for things again." "I'm not asking you to," she said quickly. "I don't want your money. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I'm glad you're working, but you need to do this on your own now." "I understand." We sat in silence. A jogger passed. A couple walked their dog. "Does this mean we can talk again?" "Sometimes." I thought about it. "Maybe, someday, but not now." She nodded. "Okay." I stood. She stood too. "I hope things get better for you," I said. "Thank you," she whispered. We hugged, awkward, stiff like strangers, but it was something. I saw tears on her cheeks when I pulled away. "Take care of yourself, Ashley." "You too, Dad." I walked to my car and drove home. It wasn't closure. It wasn't reconciliation. Just a beginning, a small, uncertain beginning of something new. Not what we'd had before. But maybe someday, something better. It's February 2026. I'm 53 years old, and I'm free. I wake up in my Lake Oswego townhouse, the same 3-bedroom place I bought after my divorce in 2011, and the first thing I see is Diane still asleep beside me. She moved in last June. We'd been dating for a year and a half, and one night over dinner she'd said, "Why are we pretending we don't want to live together?" So we stopped pretending. Her things are everywhere now. Her books on the shelf, her coffee mug in the cabinet, her running shoes by the door. And I love it. For the first time in my life, I'm sharing a space with someone who doesn't need me to fund her existence. She pays half the utilities. She cooks dinner 3 nights a week. We split the grocery bill. We're partners. This spring, we're going to Italy. 2 weeks. Rome, Florence, the Amalfi Coast. We've been planning it since December, comparing hotels, mapping out day trips, arguing about whether to rent a car or take trains. She wants trains. I want a car. We'll probably compromise and do both. I'm still VP of Commercial Banking at Truist. Same job I've had for 26 years. I could retire in 7 years if I wanted to. But honestly, I like working. I like the routine. I like having somewhere to go in the morning, problems to solve, colleagues who respect me. And for the first time in decades, my paycheck is mine. I don't wire $6,500 to Parsons every month. I don't transfer $1,500 for Manhattan rent. I don't cover $2,100 in miscellaneous expenses. I don't pay $3,600 in child support. My money stays in my account. I save it. I invest it. I spend it on things I want, trips, dinners, a new couch, a weekend at the coast with Diane. I'm free, but freedom, I've learned, doesn't mean forgetting. I still think about Ashley. Not every day, but sometimes. I wonder how she's doing. If she's okay. If she's learned the lessons I couldn't teach her. And according to Tyler, she has. Tyler still keeps tabs on Karen and Ashley through mutual friends in the Lake Oswego-Beaverton area. He doesn't tell me everything he knows. I don't want the full story, but he gives me updates when something significant happens. Here's what I know: Ashley still works at Nordstrom. She's been there almost 3 years now. She started as a sales associate in the women's department, making $15 an hour. Last year, she was promoted to senior sales associate. She now makes $19 an hour and trains new hires. She's saved $25,000. Tyler told me that in January. I almost didn't believe it. $25,000 in 3 years on a retail salary. That's discipline. That's sacrifice. That's something I never would have thought she was capable of in 2023. She's applying to Portland State University for fall 2026. Business Administration. PSU is a public state school. Tuition runs about $12,000 a year for in-state students. She's applying for scholarships. She's taking out federal loans. She's using her savings to cover what the loans won't. She's doing it herself. Karen, according to Tyler, is still in Beaverton. She went back to teaching full-time at the same Title I elementary school, where she'd worked before marrying Andrew. She makes around $58,000 a year now, enough to cover rent, groceries, her car payment. She hasn't remarried. She doesn't date. Tyler says she looks older, tired. Her relationship with Ashley is strained. They live together, but they're not close. Ashley works long hours. Karen works long hours. They pass each other in the apartment, exchange pleasantries, and retreat to their separate rooms. It's functional, but it's not warm. As for me and Ashley, we meet 2, maybe 3 times a year. The first time was 6 months after Laurelhurst Park. October 2024. She texted and asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I said yes. We met at a Starbucks in Tigard, halfway between Lake Oswego and Beaverton. We talked for 45 minutes. She told me about her job. I told her about Diane. It was polite, careful, like 2 acquaintances catching up. She didn't call me Dad. She called me Scott. Or sometimes she avoided using a name at all, just making eye contact when she needed my attention. I didn't correct her. We've done that a few more times since. Coffee in November 2025, lunch in January 2026. She tells me about work, about her plans for PSU, about a coworker she's become friends with. I tell her about trips with Diane, about work, about the new restaurant we tried last week. We don't talk about the past. We don't talk about the name change or the lawsuit or the $876,000. We don't talk about Andrew or Karen or the years between 2013 and 2023 when I was invisible. We just exist in the present. Politely. Distantly. Exactly as I said we would in March 2024. She doesn't ask me for money. I don't offer. When the check comes, we split it. That's the agreement. And we both honor it. I don't know if we'll ever be close again. I don't know if she'll ever call me dad. I don't know if I'll ever feel like her father the way I did when she was 6 years old, running toward me in the driveway, after work, arms outstretched, yelling, "Daddy's home." But I'm okay with that. Because I learned something in the last 3 years. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's enabling. And I spent 19 years enabling a daughter who didn't respect me, funding a life I wasn't part of, sacrificing my own future for someone who'd legally removed my name. I don't regret stopping the money. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the most necessary. If you're reading this and you see yourself in my story, here's what I learned. Lesson 1. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. For 19 years, I thought providing everything was love. I thought if I paid for the tuition, the rent, the parties, the clothes, if I just kept giving, she'd know I cared. But that wasn't love. It was fear. Fear of losing her. Fear of being replaced. Fear of admitting that money can't buy a relationship. I was wrong. Love means teaching someone to stand on their own. It means saying no when they need to hear it. It means letting them fail so they can learn. I didn't do that. I enabled a lifestyle I couldn't afford, and a daughter who didn't respect me. And it took me 19 years and $876,300 to realize it. Lesson 2. You can't buy love, respect, or a relationship. I spent nearly $1 million trying to stay in my daughter's life. I paid for everything. And in return, she legally removed my name and replaced me with her stepfather. Money doesn't create connection. Presence does. Boundaries do. Respect does. I should have spent less time writing checks and more time teaching her that love is something you earn, not something you buy. I should have set boundaries in 2013 when Andrew started taking my place. I should have said no in 2020 when she asked for a $77,500 party. I should have stopped in 2021 when she listed Andrew as her emergency contact at Parsons. But I didn't. Because I was afraid that if I stopped giving, she'd stop caring. And you know what? She did anyway. Lesson 3. Forgiveness is for you, not for them. I forgave Ashley. Not because she deserved it. Not because she earned it. But because I deserved peace. Carrying anger is like carrying a backpack full of rocks. It weighs you down. It exhausts you. It keeps you trapped in the past. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means you're done carrying the weight. I let go. And for the first time in decades, I could breathe. If you're a parent in your 40s, 50s, or 60s, and you're reading this because you're funding an adult child who doesn't respect you, listen to me, stop. If you're paying for their rent, their car, their lifestyle, and they don't call unless they need money, stop. If they've chosen someone else to be their parent, but still expect you to be their ATM, stop. If you're afraid that cutting them off means losing them, you've already lost them. The question is, are you going to keep paying for the illusion, or are you going to reclaim your life? Here's my advice. Teach your children that love is earned, not bought. If they don't respect you, no amount of money will change that. If they choose someone else, let them go. You can't force belonging. You can't buy loyalty. And you can't make someone love you by funding their life. And if they come back, forgive them. For your sake, not theirs. But don't forget. Boundaries aren't walls, they're guidelines. And if someone can't respect your boundaries, they don't respect you. So I'll ask you, what would you do in my situation? Would you have kept paying? Would you have cut her off sooner? Would you have responded to the letter? Leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Have you had to choose between love and boundaries? Have you been used by someone you loved? How did you handle it? And if this resonated with you, if you saw yourself in my story, subscribe. Let's support each other. Let's learn from each other. Let's stop enabling and start empowering. Because here's the truth, now I'm free. And she's learning how to be. That's all I ever wanted. Looking back, I spent 19 years trying to buy something. Money can't purchase love, respect, and a genuine relationship. Family betrayal came from the people I trusted most. My ex-wife who manipulated our daughter, and that daughter who chose financial comfort over her own father. But the deepest family betrayal was the one I inflicted on myself, enabling toxic behavior, because I was too afraid to set boundaries. Don't be like me. Don't mistake endless giving for love. Don't fund a life you're not part of. Don't wait 19 years and $876,300 to realize that respect must be earned, not bought. Here's what I learned. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's enabling. You can't force someone to value you by opening your wallet. And forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means freeing yourself from the weight of anger. If you're reading this and funding an adult child who treats you like an ATM, stop now. If they've chosen someone else but still expect your money, let them go. You're not abandoning them, you're teaching them accountability. And if they come back someday, forgive them for your peace, but remember the lesson. Grandpa stories taught me that integrity matters more than comfort. My grandfather once told me, "A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything." Those grandpa stories about hard work and self-respect stuck with me even when I ignored them for too long. I still remember those grandpa stories around the dinner table teaching me that real love means holding people accountable, not rescuing them from consequences. God gave us free will, and sometimes that means watching people we love make terrible choices. I prayed for wisdom, and He showed me that loving someone doesn't mean funding their dysfunction. Faith taught me to forgive, but wisdom taught me when to walk away. Now I'm free. And Ashley's learning to be. That's all I ever wanted. Thank you for walking this journey with me to the very end. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. What would you have done if you found yourself in Scott's impossible situation? I genuinely want to hear your perspective. If this story resonated with you emotionally, please consider subscribing so you won't miss upcoming videos. A quick note. While inspired by real-life dynamics and social themes around family betrayal and parental boundaries, certain elements have been dramatized for storytelling purposes. If this content doesn't align with your preferences, feel free to explore other videos that might suit you better.